It's fascinating that many conservatives are now lambasting Tucker Carlson for asking certain hard questions about narratives we've been fed by the government. Do I agree?
So this is Vivek stepping into the ring about this Tucker Carlson situation that's got everybody worked up because Tucker was talking to Joe about things that he was thinking. And when Vivek says, I think it's, crazy basically that some conservatives, he's talking about the Daily Wire, Ben Shapiro, Jeremy Boring, the total establishment conservatives. I mean, let's call them what it is. The ones who tell you stop asking questions and believe the government. Right. So we're going to get into that. We're going to break down. I want you to see an example, though, of Ben doing this exact thing because there's just so much of it. I don't understand what's going on and why these people are so worked up.
Anything about presidential history, you know that a wide variety of presidential campaigns have been spied on by the administration in power. In 1940, for example, the Wendell Willkie campaign was pretty clearly spied on by the FBI at the behest of FDR. In 1964, LBJ literally bugged Barry Goldwater's headquarters in 1964. Famously, in 1972, the Richard Nixon campaign spied on the campaign of George McGovern, right? That's what.
So this is Ben Shapiro trying to water down the fact that Donald Trump had his campaign spied on. We had the whole Russia collusion story that unfortunately some people still believe in. I probably have to one day do a taping of Jimmy Dore breaking it down. Jimmy Dore was amazing around that time because he was like, I'm just a guy who has some recreational smoking that I do in my garage and make videos. And I could tell that this was a hoax, so it is extraordinary. And this is what I mean about not being blocked into your quote side, if you will, your quote label, whatever you want to call it. This is what I mean about that, where you need to step out of the box and go see what other people are talking about. It is very important. It's more important now, I'm seeing, than ever. Now, Ben Shapiro is trying to water down the fact that this happened to Trump because Tucker Carlson said that this is what radicalized him into realizing that, hey, maybe not everything they're telling me is true. And you would think somebody would feel like, okay, good, that's good. You decided to go off and critically think and ask questions. And again, Ben is disrespectful to say just asking questions doesn't make you a critical thinker. We're talking about Tucker Carlson, bro. Like, we're not even talking about me here. We're talking about Tucker Carlson. This is what he does. So what are you saying? Insane. But people are weighing in, and we have a couple, reactions towards this that I want to get into. And we are going to get into it because it's important to talk about. There is something happening right now in the media, the alternative media space. People are waking up to true colors.
Watergate was all about. So actually, there's a fairly well-predicated history of the instruments of law enforcement being misused, which is why there's been a hot debate about the utility of various law enforcement agencies on the right. This has been going on literally my entire lifetime and well before. Okay, but according to Tucker, that radicalized him. And now he went from supposedly believing everything to believing the reverse of everything. Now, that is actually not critical thinking. That's actually not critical thinking. If what you said is, I took in everything too much, too easily without examining the evidence, and so now I'm going to take a stronger look at the evidence before I come to a conclusion, that would be critical thinking. But saying that the evidence that is presented to you is now of no consequence whatsoever, that no evidence provided is sufficient because the source cannot be trusted, that they are lying to you, that they're always lying to you, always, and that no counter evidence is necessary to support your new thesis because, again, they're lying to you and they've hidden all the evidence. We are now in the world of the unfalsifiable. Any evidence against your new thesis is discounted by the fact that it's coming from a source that lies to you. And no evidence for your thesis is available. Why? Because they hid it and they are lying to you.
I don't even know why Ben keeps making these type of episodes too, because we're going to look at the comments. I'm pretty sure he's getting ratioed on this one. I'm pretty sure he is. What Ben just said there is trust the government. Okay. I remember Reagan said, if the government, it says they're here to help, run the other way, right? How many times do I have to be lied to for me to say, you want to know what, guys? Maybe I don't trust anything they're saying to me. How many 9/11s do I need to go through? How many weapons of mass destructions do I need to go to? How many respiratory viruses? I mean, at what point do I start to say, I don't know, guys. I mean, you keep lying to me, but this time you're going to get it right. Yes, Ben, that is the pattern. People don't like being lied to, and they've been lied to constantly by a media, too, a corporate media that is nothing but the mouthpiece of the Pentagon, the White House, and everybody else, right? And so this is why you have people who come to channels like this And thank you for watching. Please, guys, don't forget to like, hit the subscribe button and the notification bell, because, we talk about things in a realistic manner and we break through. We bring the asteroid that's going to break through the labels of right and left. And, I'm just at the point where it's like no more of that, right? For the most part. But anyway, like, what are you trying to say, Ben? Why are you so worked up? It's okay. Not everybody trusts the government. I mean, this is just like saying, like, trust the government, bro. What?
So then it comes down to, what is the thesis that Tucker is using? What is the narrative that Tucker is backing? Well, as he says, he's using the thesis that every single power that exists in the United States is lying to you about everything, down to the most basic morality of Americanism. Things like, was America right to involve itself in World War II? Was America right to drop a nuclear weapon on Hiroshima and Nagasaki in order to end the war? Now listen, as always, when Tucker talks, they're thinking of the questions rather than critically evaluating. And what's more, there's been something wrong with the soul of America for generations. Now, again, a lot of calculation.
Dresden, that were collective punishment. And
America, Tucker literally says this, okay? So I'm not attributing to Tucker a view he doesn't hold. And if I am, I'm happy for him to correct me. We've invited him on the show multiple times. Tucker has another critique. America lost its moral credibility during World War II. Now, again, this is the same argument that he makes with Joe that everybody is now latching onto, but he made this argument months ago when he was on with Russell Brand.
And I do think there are war crimes that the United States committed during the Second World War, the firebombing of Tokyo, famously Dresden, that were collective punishment. And I would also say, by the way, the atomic bombs on Hiroshima and Nagasaki, that's collective punishment.
Yes.
Okay. And I think that rotted the soul of the West. I do.
Yes.
I think that's so immoral that it did two things. One, you carry the burden of sin at scale like that. You just do. You can't help it. And two, that level of power in the hands of human beings convinced them that they were gods.
Yes, it's curious because you would hear a comparable argument offered for slavery, for example, that this burden is borne by American culture. And yet I've never heard anyone advance it around the acts of Hiroshima and Nagasaki. I wanted to...
We dropped atomic weapons on civilian populations.
Yes.
Now, I'm not endorsing Imperial Japan.
Yes.
And it was an imperial power in the worst sense. Horrible government. However, you can't annihilate a civilian population and call yourself the good guy. I don't care. I love America. I will defend America almost under any circumstances. You can't defend that.
Well, I mean, I at this point, I kind of want to know which circumstances, because I feel like the defense of America, especially on the foreign policy sphere, just for Tucker, does not exist particularly a lot. Again, I have the same views.
So we're going to stop right there with Ben, because I want to get into these reactions, because it's just hilarious to me still. And, there's people weighing in on this. It's just hilarious to watch him. Look, drop a comment below. Let me know how you feel about Ben Shapiro or all of this is happening. The fact is, right now, the quote right, we'll say the right for this instance, there's a reckoning happening right now. There is what I would call like a little bit of a schism. People are just kind of waking up to a lot of different things. Okay. And have y'all ever even heard of Dresden? Drop a comment below. Let me know if you've ever heard of Dresden. He's not saying that the West is demoralized forever. Like, we'll just dehumanize demons. That's it forever. No, but that was not a great thing. That was not a great thing. And sometimes, like, I've heard people, because of that, they hold on to certain feelings. And, if we go by that standard, I just don't want anybody to ever do that to me. We're just going to put it that way. But let's just see how people are having their reactions to Ben Shapiro in this post, because, he just goes off. Starting civilians is okay when we do it, and anyone who disagrees with me is down. Ben Shapiro. Of course, everybody, brings up Nick. You oppose nuclear holocaust. What are you? It's just like, you could tell, man, how many of these? Whoa, wait a second. It's not looking good. And he keeps on. Heidi says, what's up, Heidi? We follow each other. She says that nobody should look to Ben for moral guidance ever. So this is what's going on. People are they just don't like it. They don't like it because what it sounds like, if you call yourself, the right, the quote right is not neocon anymore, right? it's not the quote right from the 1990s, big suits, 80s, and everything. It really is a working class group of people. It's Americans who don't have stock in, Halliburton and Lockheed Martin, all of that. So people are realizing, like, well, you're pushing for policies that will destroy America. So I just, I'm just saying, like, how people are looking at this.
I find it fascinating that many conservatives are now lambasting Tucker Carlson for asking certain hard questions about narratives we've been fed by the government. Do I agree with Tucker on all of his views? Of course not. I don't agree with anybody on 100% of their views. That would be a weird thing to do. But I also think it's a weird thing to do to lambast somebody for questioning certain narratives when, in fact, that's what it means to be a skeptical citizen of a truly democratic nation. I'll tell you where it comes from, though. I'm not just going to tar somebody on their side. Let's get to the heart of what's going on there. I think we as conservatives have appropriately been fed up by the self-loathing left that has repeatedly for 160 years and for the last 6 years incessantly questioned the founding of our country, obsessing over systemic racism and white rage and the original sin of slavery at our founding. And at a certain point, all of us, most conservatives I know, myself included, Tucker included, others, are saying enough with it already. Let's move forward as one country because we've beaten that dead horse to death. There's nothing more to say. Now, back in 1960, when you didn't have necessarily equal rights enjoyed across this country, that was still a relevant conversation to have, to say, well, slavery existed all the way through the Civil War. The Reconstruction era didn't quite put an end to those inequities. How are we going to deal with it in the Civil Rights Revolution? That was a reasonable discussion to have. But now we're 60 plus years after that. And at a certain point, it's time to move on. And if you're consistently still obsessing over narratives dating back over 250 years, then yes, that means you probably do in some measure hate this country. Fine. But that's different from saying that there are certain areas where we deserve to question our own history that haven't been questioned. And I think that that's the difference we need to draw. The distinction we need to draw is one thing to beat a dead horse and hate ourselves for the sake of hating ourselves. That's what the modern left does. But that's not what Tucker's doing. To the contrary, he's turning over rocks that haven't really been turned over, rolling over logs that deserve to be rolled over and seeing what crawls out. Sometimes maybe there's nothing there. Is he going to have a 100% hit rate? Of course not. But I don't think it's the right thing to do, especially as conservatives who are supposed to be skeptical of the government, to criticize somebody for asking questions, and not just in an armchair way, but in a rigorous way, asking the kinds of questions that at least the American people deserve to have answers to and closure on. I think that's a good thing. And whether you're liberal or conservative, I think you actually do love this country if you're willing to ask those hard questions. And that's why I think it's a mistake, an unintentional mistake that many conservatives make when they try to tell people to shut up, sit down, and do as they're told. That's what the modern progressive left does. Let's not make the same mistake in return.
Vivek is right, and he breaks it down and he makes it very clear. He's right. I mean, he's right about it all, right? So even from the beginning, when he's like, what happens to us, when we hear people saying, that, the country's bad and was immoral for doing XYZ, we automatically get defensive and say, oh, here we go again with the hate of the country. Here y'all go again, bringing up things from the past that we can't change. And y'all just hate this country. Like, I get that, that we definitely get defensive about it very quickly. And I myself have done that. I definitely have, because I spent years hating the country based off of false propaganda, lies, okay, and omissions of truth. This is why it irritates me to no end when I see people who have huge platforms, and kudos to them, God bless them for having it, but then they continue to lie to their audience. You have a duty to tell the truth to your audience, no matter how inconvenient it is, especially no matter how inconvenient it is to your quote label. Now, coming back to the point, so I get that we get a little defensive, and that's why people probably are at first coming at Tucker, but please hear him out. We're talking about Tucker Carlson, who has changed his mind. It's all a part of growth, especially when you get more information. You start to really look at things as to how they're working, like how things really go on in this country. And so Tucker's not wrong. And Vivek is right. All he's doing is just like kind of looking under, rocks and seeing what crawls out. Maybe sometimes there's nothing there. You don't have to agree with everything he says, but we should be allowed to engage in self-criticism. We should be allowed to just look at what we've done, what we didn't know, what we know now, and how we can learn from it. That's the thing. It just always goes back to, we need to learn from it, but to act like certain things didn't happen, we will continue to repeat the same mistakes all over again. Okay. To act like WMDs was not a thing that cost American soldiers their lives. Even if you don't care, like me, I have a thing about the civilians over, in Iraq and everything that were killed. Yes, because those are lives too. But I certainly know American soldiers lost their lives, minds, limbs, and everything else. What are we doing? If we can't look at the past and say, yo, we shouldn't have did it that way, how do we learn from that so that we don't do it again? Then we are destined to keep playing in this hamster wheel. And the thing about this hamster wheel is we don't stay stagnant. We will self-destruct. So reality is definitely necessary. Thank you for watching.